I've got 8 random questions, and I need you to give me 3 numbers, and then they correlate with a question that I will ask you.
7.
I'm curious if you have an answer to this. This one's called Scream. What's your favorite scary movie?
I actually don't have a favorite scary movie because I hate scary movies because I am so easily frightened. I think the last scary movie that I watched, really, I don't even want to say it out loud because I don't want to remember it, but it is the most terrifying film that I've ever watched to this day. And it sort of makes me sick to think about it. Well, they're too tied equal, but it's Don't Look Now.
Okay.
Which I know, which for most people is a fairly mild film, but for me it was like, I'm so terrified of that little red hooded figure, that it just gave me terrors really for the rest of my life. So now I can't watch anything frightening.
I need to fix this for you.
Okay,
so I just recommended this to someone else, so it's fresh in my mind.
Okay, great.
It is a horror musical, and it's delightful. It's wonderful.
Okay,
it's
good.
called Anna and the Apocalypse.
Okay.
I think you should
And
watch
it's
that.
not too scary?
No.
It's
Oh my
not
God,
like the
no,
little
not
dwarf
scary
with
at all.
the red dwarf. I know you're
No.
But the little person with the...
It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Okay.
You're going to love it. I promise you're going to like that one.
Okay.
All right, so you just picked a 7. Can I get another number, 1 through 8?
Okay, 4.
All right. Number 4. Number 4 is an acting question. This is the one I call favorite, least favorite.
Okay.
Can you tell me your single favorite part of the acting process? So something like rehearsing, putting a costume on for the first time. And then I also want not necessarily your least favorite, but a part of the process where you still see room to grow for yourself and you're excited to tackle it.
Favorite part is, I think rehearsing, especially rehearsing for a play when it's just the actors and the director. And that's a really, really special, I've always much preferred that time. I mean, it's always interesting when the audience comes in too, because that's like a third actor in the room. That's a different energy altogether. But there's something very special about, where that sort of private circle of just the actors. It's always a nice part of doing this show when it's this huge epic scale and so much going on, so many crew and so many amazing people involved in these huge sets. And there's just a little tiny moment before we start shooting when it's just the actors just working together and doing what we do before everything else comes into play as well. And that's my favourite time.
I love that.
I think I'm not alone in that. I think a lot of actors feel the same. I still get very nervous. So I feel like being able to, it's different. I'd say there are 2 different fears or different kind of fears that are associated with screen and then with theatre. Slightly, there's sort of different things going on. So stage fright with theatre, that kind of absolute terror. And very often I've felt like, come on, I've done this quite a few times. I really shouldn't be this, my heart shouldn't be racing to the extent that it is, but it seems to sort of get worse. So that's something that I would love. I don't know whether it ever will go away, and maybe that's part of the point, is that it doesn't.
It's a sign of caring. Every time I get nervous before walking into one of these rooms, I'm like, why am I freaking out right now? Yeah. But I'm like, it's because I care and I keep wanting to do a good job.
You want people to be happy.
Yeah, I do.
It's sort of also, it's more than that. It's a whole mixture of things. It's why do any of us feel frightened about anything? But yeah, so that would be something to work with.
I get that. All right, you got one more number to pick. What is your last one?
3.
Number 3, my lucky number, and I love this question. This one's called wrap gifts. What is the most memorable wrap gift you've ever received or given?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, the ones that I really love are those just little kind of very small, the small things that are, just between friends, that are sort of almost insignificant, like actually not insignificant, they're deeply significant, but they're small in substance, which is the cards actually that people have written and the things that they say, and also vice versa, like the process of going through writing cards to people, writing cards of thanks, or the present giving that happens when you sit with each person and think about what you're gonna, what you value about them and what thanks you want to give to them. It's just a really lovely moment, because it's it's sort of like Christmas every time, and so yeah, I think the cards has always been the most beautiful thing.
I'm a greeting card saver. I like this answer quite a bit. I never throw them away.
I've kept so many cards from like first night cards from people, and what people, and thinking about what to say to somebody about what you love about them and what you're grateful for about them, and that's just, it's very special. It's good.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back for a brand new edition of Collider Ladies Night. Love House of the Dragon, so I'm so happy to welcome Eve Best to the show for season 2. Congratulations yet again.
A force in this series.
Thank you.
What is the movie you saw, the performance you saw, a personal experience you had, whatever it may be, that first made you say to yourself, I have to be an actor?
Oh, gosh. Well, I feel like I always, I don't know that there was a decision that I made like that, black and white, overnight. It was just something that I felt it was always in my blood and always doing. Even as a kid, I was I was doing plays with my little sister and my cousins, and I would be the director and the star and the, sort of bossing everybody about, and then do loads of things at school. And so it was always, and my mum used to be an actor. So we were used to going to see her, and it just felt like part of my DNA somehow. So it wasn't like a kind of revelation, I want to do this. But in terms of very inspiring performances, I think, when I was young, there was a performance that really struck me. I was 7 years old when I saw Grease for the first time, and Stockard Channing as Rizzo, which I think is this kind of era-defining performance, which I actually watched the other day. Again, I haven't watched Grease for years and years. And it is extraordinary what she does, and the doors that she opened with that performance and who she was and the way that she was. And because I identified with her so much, and she was this spunky woman who was a rebel and who didn't toe the line, and who was badly behaved, and who spoke her mind, and who, just was sort of chaotic and entirely herself, and it didn't give a shit what anybody thought about her on the surface, and yet was so deeply vulnerable underneath. And the kind of the freedom and the a sense of empowerment that I had as a 7-year-old little girl, feeling like, oh my God, it's okay to be like that. Like, I feel like, and she didn't look like a normal Hollywood star. She's got this interesting image, she's phenomenally beautiful, but she's not, this kind of standard across the board obvious look that seemed to feel like one had to have if one was to go into acting at all. So it's the kind of permission, the strength, the maverick quality that she had, the energy, it was profoundly inspiring, I think. And I didn't realize quite how much it inspired me until I actually worked with her last year, and I couldn't believe it. And there were quite a few women on the show who were sort of similar to my age or my generation. And we were all like little kids. It was like, literally, it was like Jesus was coming. It's like, Stockard. The day she arrived on set, and we were all sort of like nervous schoolgirls, because it's like, you know, she was a hero. She is a hero, and she's, you know, absolutely for us all. And as an expression of real feminine power and genuine beauty, I think she was an inspiration.
I have the best follow-up to this ever, because I recently had someone else on Ladies' Night, and when she was telling me about things that inspired her when she got started, it was a performance of yours. And I was, this was like literally weeks ago. And then I found out about this press day, and I'm like, oh, well, I know who I need to get on the show next. It was Jessica Gunning, who's in Baby Reindeer now.
Wow.
She was telling me about the importance of knowing when to react to an unexpected moment in theater on stage.
I went to see a play of, Hedda Gabler with an amazing actress called Eve Best. And I saw it twice. And on the first night I saw it, she was wearing this beaded necklace, and she made a move and the beads went everywhere. And she used this speech one by one. She put the beads into this glass jar. And I was like, that bit was amazing. And then I saw it again and it didn't happen. And so she'd just done it in the moment because her necklace broken.
So I have two questions about that.
Yeah.
Where did you first learn that going with it in a moment like that is important? And what was going through your mind when that happened on the spot?
Well, do you know what? When we did Hedda, I hadn't worked at the Globe, I don't think, yet, because the Globe is somewhere that teaches you that because it's such an entirely immersive experience, and the audience is part of the action as much as the actors, and it's a collective. And so that's where that understanding is really hammered home, that you have to embrace every single thing that happens, because it's impossible. There's nowhere to hide. And actually it's the most useful and necessary thing to do, because it's when you're the most alive and everybody is present in the room. Everybody sees that necklace. I mean, there were things that happened at the Globe that would, like, you know, I was doing scenes at one point, and a very, very dramatic scene, very intense, and I was terribly cross with, so it was Beatrice and Benedict, and I was really giving Benedict welly, furious with him, and my skirt, the lacing had come undone, and it was gradually falling down my knees, and I looked down and I saw that it had fallen off, and I just looked at the audience, and we all just had to laugh, because it was just ludicrous. You can't hide that stuff. So I've forgotten your question, sorry. But that was where I learned that. But so Hedda, I don't know how I guess I remember the very first night of Hedda. I think it was the press night. And that show is so intense. And there's, what she goes through is so unbelievably intense. And, there was one scene when I remember my husband had this pair of slippers, and I hated him so much, and I threw the pair of slippers, meaning to throw them through the window. I was so angry. But what happened on the press night was that I threw the pair of slippers, they ricocheted off the set, and then flew into the lap of an audience member who happened to be the 85-year-old John Mortimer, who was in a wheelchair and on his last, in his last moments. And I was so terrified that I've injured this, not just an audience member, but also, an octogenarian. And I just had to stop the whole thing and just say, oh my God, are you all right? I'm so sorry. And then improvise something like, this was my husband's fault, it was his fault or something. But it was just, you can't avoid those things. And I think those moments are actually heavenly for the audience, because it's when we all come out of the game. The whole thing is that it's an agreement. We all decide to play this game, and I'm going to pretend something, and you're going to pretend that what I'm pretending is the case. And then we all go on this journey together. But then those moments when we all collectively come out of the game and can laugh, or, whatever it is It's heavenly.
I love that so much. It's a beautiful quality of theater, and that's part of the reason why I love going to movie theaters and watching shows like House of the Dragon with friends and family so we can have that shared experience.
Yeah.
Before I jump into that specifically, I have one more broader question, and it comes from a quote that I caught that you said. You said, I like roles that scare the shit out of me. So it did make me wonder, what is the single scariest role you've ever taken on, and how does joining the Game of Thrones franchise compare to it?
Gosh. I mean, look, I feel like there's almost like a criteria for the jobs that I take. Like if it scares the shit out of me, like if I feel like if I know how to play this, when I read the script, if I get a sense of it, then I probably don't need to do it. It's those ones where you go, I've got no idea how I could relate to the, how I could, I remember that with, all of them actually. There were parts you yearn to play. Like I always felt like I yearned to play Hedda, and I yearned to play Cleopatra, and I yearned to play all the Shakespeare heroines because I was more familiar with them. Then there were parts like, Josie and Moon for the Misbegotten, the Eugene O'Neill play. And I was like, I don't know how the heck I could, actually with Hedda too, I thought, I don't know how I can get under the skin. It's getting under the skin of these people who when you read the script and they're so profoundly anti-sympathetic. But how can I get inside the head of this person who feels like I don't and that's what's so interesting when you start empathizing with these characters so that's like what happens with this show is that, you start empathizing with profoundly, on paper, unsympathetic behavior, but you understand where it's coming from. And so then you see yourself and you see the humanity and you see the vulnerability, because in the end, everybody's vulnerable and everybody's terrified. Everybody is terrified, and all bad behavior comes from fear. And so, that's in the end, that's a really, that's just exciting. And so it seems the more I do it, the more it feels like it's like a psychological experiment.
I love that. I heavily misjudged time today, so I'll jump to House of the Dragon season 2 now. I'll pick first a question about working with Steve, because your collaboration, I think, is one of the greatest joys of this show. I'll make it a 2-part question. When you first met him, what was it about him that signaled to you he would be a great scene partner for me? And then on season 2, can you tell me a new quality you found in him that lifted those expectations even higher?
What I think when we very first met was in the read-through of the first season. And the very first thing he said when we were standing next to each other on the coffee table, and he said, "I'm a hugger," and as am I. And we just gave each other a big hug. And I kind of think that we probably both knew in that moment that we were going to get on. And I think we said, it was at that moment when we were standing at the coffee table. So much work happens at coffee tables. I think that's really where all the work goes on. But it was when we were there, we just sort of looked at each other and said, I think they probably really get on, don't they? And that, I think we just both felt the same. And look, it's not something that you can, create or really organize. It's good fortune if you happen to have that kind of chemical balance. I think we do balance each other. We talk a lot. And just, which is really, about lots of really nice, interesting stuff. And it feels like that, the relationship on screen is supported by the fact that we also just really get on together. And, that I think it was that hug, probably.
You feel it. You feel that leaping off the screen when you watch the two of you. I'll end with a specific moment from season 2, and it's something everyone's seen. I happened to notice this clip went live before I drove over here, so it's okay. It's in the beginning of episode 1. It's your first scene, actually. Yeah. It's with Daemon, and Daemon says to Rhaenys, if you'd have acted when you had the chance, Aegon's line would be extinguished and Luke would be alive. That is an extremely intense thing for him to say to her. What was it like figuring out how such a statement made her feel and how she needed to react in that moment?
Yeah, I think I don't know that that's something that I could think through in that way. Prior to us doing it, because that stuff is sort of intangible, so to do with instinct and feeling. It's not something that you can sort of coordinate in your brain and plot through the stages. It's very, very complicated for her, and that knowledge is, of course, weighty. However, I don't feel somebody else asked about regret. And ultimately, what she's got in her mind is a bigger picture. And what she does or doesn't do at the end of episode 9 is to choose not to destroy. And that's the greatest example of magnificent, compassionate leadership. It's the most beautiful choice of ultimate power combined with ultimate mercy and love, which is an example for the world, and why she would have made the most extraordinary leader. The fact that it results in the loss of this intensely precious and beautiful life, who happens to be her grandson, is horrendous beyond words, obviously. But in terms of the bigger context, that's part of why she would have been such a great leader, because she can see the bigger context over the individual.
I'll think about that a lot. If nobody yells at me, I'll do the last ladies' night question. We always end with this one. I'll warn you, nobody likes it, but I think it's an important thing to ask about.
Yikes.
So in this industry, we give each other awards. Super cool. Everyone should keep doing that. Nobody says good job to themselves nearly enough. I want you to tell me something you did in House of the Dragon Season 2 that you know you'll be able to look back on and say, I'm so proud of what I did there.
I'm so proud of what I did in the last scene that I shot of the season, because it was intensely physically, emotionally, and spiritually demanding, and more. I feel like, I mean, every job you feel like is the hardest one you've done until the next, but it felt like more so than any I've ever done, and I got through it, and I didn't indulge myself. I didn't let my stuff get in the way of, I didn't let my own feelings get in the way of the job I had to do, which I feel like is exactly what Rhaenys does. She just gets on with it.
I love it. I could talk about your craft with you all day long. I'm not allowed. I'm going to say huge congratulations on season 2.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome back to Ladies' Night anytime.
Thank you. I love Ladies' Night.